It's no secret that I grew up playing the old Sierra Adventure games. King's Quest, Space Quest. If it had a quest in the title, I probably played it at some point. So you can guess that I do like to keep up on point-and-click games, which is why when I saw Night of the Rabbit on Steam, I decided to take a look. It actually looked really good in the screenshots. Very good artwork. And given that that's 1/3 of what a point-and-click adventure game kind of relies on, well, you're starting off pretty strong right there. It's brought to us by Daedalic Entertainment. It's a great company from Germany that seems to be trying to keep the whole point-and-click genre alive. It seems to be all that they really do. At least everything on Steam that they've released is a point-and-click. But what they're probably most well-known for is the Deponia series, which I will be covering in a later video in its own right, probably around the time that the third game comes out. But there is one thing that I want to say about Deponia that's relevant to this review, and that is, if your only experience with Daedalic Entertainment is Deponia, Night of the Rabbit is nothing like Deponia. In Deponia, your main character is Rufus, and he is a complete ass. We're talking the main factor of whether or not you will enjoy the Deponia games is whether or not you can stand Rufus, or at least gain enjoyment from his suffering. So believe me when I say that Night of the Rabbit's main character, Jeremiah Hazelnut, want to be magician, and way too nice kid, is the complete opposite. He's so good, in fact, that I actually got stuck on a puzzle with an obvious answer, all because I assumed he would refuse to steal from a vending machine. And when he did, it felt like he was breaking character a little bit, so yeah. But the way the characters are so strongly developed in this game is definitely the strength of Night of the Rabbit. And it's not just Jerry. Most point-and-clicks, well, the random characters you run into are only there to serve as a roadblock. To use Deponia as an example, almost every character, even the memorable ones, are just stereotypes or jokes. They're only there to impede your progress. They don't seem to exist for their own right, and they never really develop past that. After you get past them in the game, they cease to matter to the world, most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Night of the Rabbit, however, well, take this mouse guy here, for example. You first see him at the Tree Trunk Cafe, constantly going in and out and looking all depressed. Hell, his entire point in the game seems to be to open this one door at regular intervals for a puzzle. But if you talk to him, you find out that he has his own little motivations. His friend's gone missing out in the world, and he's worried about that, and the reason why he's going in the back is because of a promise he made to him, and you run into him out in the world on occasion. When you do, he's just wandering around looking for him, and it's great. They really didn't need to do any of that. It never ties into the main plot. It's not part of a puzzle. It's just there, and frankly, I love it. It makes the world seem more complete. I mean, it's really clear that they spent a lot of time on the plot and the world building. Somebody was seriously invested in this. They even produced like 3 hours of audiobook to go along with the game. There is, however, a small problem with the focus on characters, and that is the overall plot suffers a little bit for it. The overall storyline is very much what I would call a children's fairy tale. It's lighthearted, strong moral messages, bright characters, and that's fine. But the character focus and the fairy tale nature of the plot really kind of kills the pacing. The entire game, or at least the majority of it, takes place in and around Mousewood. And Mousewood's not that big. Given that the game has a focus on tree walking, especially in the later acts, and tree walking allows you to travel between dimensions, I really thought that the game would have, like, more stuff to it. But no, everything comes back to Mousewood, and that's fine overall. But here's where it really becomes a problem. That is with Act 1, the first major story arc in the game. And it just drags. You get hints that things are not quite right in the world. You see a strange lizard here, a fox statue there, You get a line of dialogue that just doesn't really make sense, or a character will be confused about why any tree walkers are even here when it seems like this is supposed to happen all the time. But you spend so long in this nebulous first act, and the problem, the first act's point is just not that interesting. You spend the whole first act just trying to gather party supplies. Sure, it introduces you to the wide cast of characters and familiarizes you with the town and areas around Mousewood. And sure, there are things that happen and events that really are built on in Acts 2 and 3 to really make the game as strong as it is at the end. But it just takes so long to get through Act 1, and the entire point of it is mail letters, find blue juice for the party, here as I can tell it's some kind of grog, I'm not sure, and get snacks. That's it. And there's so many puzzles around it. I swear, I think the first act of the game has the most puzzles out of all the major story arcs. And it's just the slowest plot-wise. I'm not quite sure why they decided to do that. In Act 2, the main antagonists, the lizards, reveal themselves, and you start to actually learn spells, which is a lot more interesting. You also get introduced to tree walking properly, and you actually meet some of the best characters. You meet the leprechaun earlier in the game, but you get to meet him again and you learn a bit more about him. You also meet Kitsune, and the moths were kind of interesting, really. I'm not quite sure what was going on with them, because their whole dilemma about, things got really cold, it sounds like some weird environmental episode, and then it's in the Arctic? What? If anything, if you were going for an environmental message about the Arctic right now, it would be it melting, not freezing. And then there's Act 3. This is when everything comes to a head, and all the little things that have been hinted at throughout the entire game just come to the forefront, and everything comes together, and it's great. The final act is definitely the strongest, and the finale, excellent. There's some great reveals, especially about the Marquis. I loved it. And the final set of puzzles in the game were easily the best I've played in a while in any point and click. But you just spend so long in the first act. I have a friend who was playing about the same time that I was, and he never finished the game. He lost interest because Act 1 just took so long to get anywhere. He lost interest, and that's a problem. On the technical side of things, visually the game is great. You got clean animation. It's clear they've improved since the first Eponia game. And the background art, excellent. The voice acting is really solid, especially for a translated title. Something Daedalic has always been really good about, so I wasn't surprised per se, but it's still great to see. And the music, solid. A couple of tracks really stood out, but generally it just set the right mood and it had the right tone. It just fit, and what more can you ask from background music, really? I only ran into one technical issue, and that was with the dialogue. On occasion, usually after loading the game up, the dialogue would just auto-skip itself, and that was really annoying. Most of the time I could just re-talk to the guy who had skipped through, so it wasn't too bad, although it did happen during a cutscene once, and I couldn't go back and rewatch the cutscene without replaying a chunk of the game, so I'm still not quite sure what was said there, which is unfortunate. It's not really a game breaker, but it was annoying when it happened, so. Now, onto the puzzles. Generally speaking, they were very good, actually. Logic, for the most part, was pretty solid. I only had to look up hints twice. It seems to be pretty typical of point and clicks for me for some reason. But the one time that I really got stuck drove me nuts, and it was because they did something that I absolutely hate. In this particular case, well, I'm just gonna spoil the puzzle, so if you don't want spoilers, well, you shouldn't be watching something called Game Spoils, probably. But, well, you need to supply these jokes to the church mice in order to get a water drinking seed. It's pretty clear that you're going to need this thing. It's very much central to everything in the scene here, so yeah. But in order to do that, you need to get them a new act. and they want some jokes. Simple enough, except, well, the game several times previously has shown and proven that Jerry is absolutely horrible at telling, delivering, remembering, and coming up with jokes. So, well, it gives you the option of trying to do so, and I knew it would fail, so I just said, you know, screw this. I know this character over here knows some really good jokes, doesn't know the ends to them, and that character over there knows how to end jokes but doesn't know the starts of them. So obviously you get the jokes from one, you get the answers from the other one, then you go give them to the church mice. Easy. Not easy. Apparently Jerry can't remember jokes either. The solution? You have to go all the way back to the church mice and try to tell the terrible jokes, which meant I had to sit through a really awkward scene that I knew wouldn't work, that I didn't want to have to sit through, just so that the church mice would say, wow, you're terrible at this, why don't you go find some jokes, here's a notebook. The game gave me more than enough hints to know that that would fail, and then they required me to fail to finish a puzzle that I already knew the solution to, but couldn't finish because I didn't have the notebook that I had to fit. I hate that.
Everybody knows that.
It's my biggest problem with some point-and-click games, and that is this little dialogue nonsense where it's like, you must talk to this person and say this exact thing or you can't progress. This is something Deponia is guilty of. Mind you, they did it several times, but it only happened once in Night of the Rabbit, which I'm quite thankful for. The rest of the puzzles, though? Great. There were only a couple ones that got a little bit mind-bendingly weird, but once you know the solutions, they actually kind of do flow. But that one in particular, it just hit the wrong button. I know I'm nitpicking with this, but damn it, it's my review. If I want to nitpick, I'm going to. As a whole, the game is a really enjoyable point-and-click game. If you're a fan of adventure games or fairy tale stories, or if you're looking for a game to play with younger children, you're probably going to find a lot to like out of this one. However, it doesn't really do anything new with the genre, so if you're not already a fan of this sort of thing, this won't be changing your mind. Personally, I loved it, and I find myself hoping for a sequel. The world and the characters are so well developed that it would be a real shame not to see them used more, especially after the whole reveal about the Marquis. I just hope that if they do a sequel, they get the plot moving just a little bit quicker. That's really my biggest complaint there. It's just the first act, it drags. But the rest of the game is so good, it kind of makes up for it, but you gotta get through that first act. Well, that's about all there is to say about Night of the Rabbit. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.
I need help so I can find the great